begin tonight's program, we will begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran. I will invite Brother Taha Husseini to come and recite Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إن سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقرب قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Jazakallah, Brother Taha. I will now invite Brother Murtaza Naqvi for further recitation of the Holy Quran. Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله أضل أعمالهم والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وآمنوا بما نزل على محمد وهو الحق من ربهم كفر عنهم سيئاتهم وأصلح بالهم ذلك بأن الذين كفروا اتبعوا الباطل وأن الذين آمنوا اتبعوا الحق من ربهم كذلك يضرب الله للناس أمثالهم فإذا لقيتم الذين I got it. Right. فإذا لقيتم الذين كفروا فضرب الرقاب حتى إذا خنتموهم فشدوا الوثاق فعما منا بعد وإما فداء حتى تدع الحرب أوزارها ذلك ولو يشاء الله لانتصر منهم ولكن ليبلو بعدكم ببعد والذين قتلوا في سبيل الله فلن يضل أعمالهم سيهديهم ويصلح بالهم ويدخلهم الجنة عرفها لهم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تنصروا الله ينصركم ويثبت أقدامكم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Those who disbelieve and turn away from Allah's way, He shall render their works ineffective. And those who believe and do good and believe in what has been revealed to Muhammad, and it is the very truth from their Lord, He will remove their evil from them and improve their condition. That is because those who disbelieve follow falsehood and have given them their dowries, taking them in marriage, not fornicating, nor taking them for paramours in secret. And whoever denies faith, his work indeed is of no account, and in the hereafter he shall be one of the losers. So when you meet in battle those who disbelieve, then smite the necks until when you have overcome them. Then make them prisoners, and afterwards either set them free as a favor or let them ransom themselves until the war terminates. That, and if Allah had been pleased, He would certainly have exacted what is due from them, but that He may try some of you by means of others. And as for those who are slain in the way of Allah, He will by no means allow their deeds to perish. He will guide them and improve their condition and cause them to enter the garden which He had made known to them. O you who believe, if you help the cause of Allah, He will help you and make firm your feet.
Jazakallah, thank you, Murtaza. I will now invite Brother Fazl Naqvi for Ziyarat Ashura. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا خيرة الله وابن خيرته. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر موتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وعلجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك. فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثأرك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالات وليكم وبالبراءة ممن أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام حدان ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم، وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبتي، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن عاكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضائف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر طابئ له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص عنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم العن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم العن يزيد خامسا والعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم، الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذي بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Jazakallah Fazal. I will now invite Brother Taqi Hussain for salam. Salawat.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، حسین دل ہے، حسین جاں ہے، حسین قرآن کی زباں ہے، حسین سجدوں کی سرزمین ہے، حسین ذہنوں کا آسماں ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، حسین زخموں بھری کہانی، حسین زخموں بھری جبی ہے، حسین عظمت کا آستاں ہے، اٹھا رہا ہے جو لاش اکبر، حسین بوڑھا نہیں جوان ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، حسین ایمان کی جستجو ہے، حسین یزداں کی آبرو ہے، حسین تنہا تھا کربلا میں، حسین کا ذکر چار سو ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، حسین کا حوصلہ نہ پوچھو، حسین لٹ کر بھی سرخ رو ہے، وہ دیکھ فوجوں کے درمیاں بھی حسین تنہا ڈٹا ہوا ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، حسین کے نقش پا کی مستی، حسین کو خلد میں نہ ڈھونڈو، حسین مہنگا ہے خلد سستی، حسین مقصوم دین و ایمان، حسین مفہوم حل عطا ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، فرات کی نبض رک گئی ہے، حسین مصروف گفتگو ہے، جہاں گلابوں سے کٹ گیا ہے، حسین شاید لہو لہو ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے، نہ پوچھ میرا حسین کیا ہے.
Jazakallah, thank you, Taqi. I will now invite Brother Ali Naqvi, Brother Sajjad Rizvi, Brother Murtaza Naqvi, and Ali Zaman for Marsiya. Salawat. Ali, leave it.
سورہ فاتحہ. جب عازم جینا ہوئے زینب کے گلزار اور گر پڑے سامندوں سے وہ دونوں نامدار چلائے بھر کے فوج سے دو چار نابکار حضرت کہاں ہے آئیں کہ ہے وقت اعتذار حضرت کہاں ہے آئیں کہ ہے وقت اعتذار اور گر دیر کی تو روگے اور خاک اڑاؤ گے تن بان جو کے پاؤ گے اور سر نہ پاؤ گے تن بان جو کے پاؤ گے اور سر نہ پاؤ گے او ہے حکم ابن سعد کے سر ان کے کاٹ لاؤ بسمل سے لوٹتے ہیں تو ہرگز نہ رحم کھاؤ اٹھ کر پکارے شاہ کے پاس جلد آؤ معصوم ذبیحہ ہوتے ہیں بہرے خدا بچاؤ معصوم ذبیحہ ہوتے ہیں بہرے خدا بچاؤ اور مقتل میں ان کی لاشوں کو گر چور پاؤں گا بے کس بہانے کو آ کے میں کیا منہ دکھاؤں گا اور بیٹوں کا غم نہیں مجھے بھائی کا ہے خیال زخمی کہیں نہ ہو اسد کبریا کلا اے بیبیوں دعائیں پڑھو بیر ذوالجلال گھر میں سلامت آئے شہن شاہ خوش کے ساتھ گھر میں سلامت آئے شہن شاہ خوش کے ساتھ اور گہرے نہ فوج فاطمہ کے نور عین کو یا رب ستم غروں سے بچا اے حسین کو عباس تیگ کھینچ کے چپتے بچشم تر اور پیچھے پیچھے روتے چلے شاہ بیروبر اور زینب نے آپ جا کے یہ راندوں کو دی خبر ماموں پسد کے ہو گئے لوگوں میرے پسر ماموں پسد کے ہو گئے لوگوں میرے اور جلائے بیبیاں صفے ماتم بچھانے کو حضرت گئے ہیں دونوں کے لاشیں اٹھا حضرت گئے ہیں دونوں کے لاشیں اٹھانے کو جب عازم جینا ہوئے صلوات
please recite aloud salawat. For those of you that don't know, we have started a Slido Q&A page. The way it works, you can post anonymous questions, and the questions will be answered by our guest scholar on a night to be decided, probably Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday, after the majlis. If you would like to be added to the Slido page, you must be added to the English group chat on WhatsApp. If you need to be added to that, please come see either me or Brother Fazl Naqvi after the majlis, and we can add you. We're looking for volunteers to help with reciting. We recite the Holy Quran at the start of the majlis. We do salam, we have noha, and we have marsiya. So if you would like to help with any of this, please come see either me or Brother Ali Naqvi. I will now invite our guest scholar, Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, to the minbar. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've been trying little by little to strengthen our true Muslim Islamic identity. And we're doing so by re-examining our essential beliefs. Those three questions: where do we come from, where are we right now, and where do we go after this? The first question being, where do we go, or where do we come from? The answer being Allah, Tawheed. So we've spent the past 2 nights opening up the concept of Tawheed. The first night, 2 nights ago, we talked about how Tawheed, the understanding that you and I have been taught since when we were little, was missing a few things, right? It was all about just Allah being one, which is fine, but it's deficient. And we talked about how Tawheed must be in action, right? Not just a belief, it's something that has to be practiced like anything else. Then last night, we talked about how the belief in Tawheed is also important as well too. But believing in Tawheed is not simply you and I saying that, okay, I believe in Allah, and then moving on. Just repeating La ilaha illallah or Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and that's it. There has to be a reality behind what we're saying. I mean, it's as simple as, if I'm saying La ilaha illallah, that, all right, there is only one God, and that's Allah. If I'm saying that, I need to know what that actually means. And at the very least, that means I should believe that a God exists. Right? That's the bare minimum that we have to do in terms of our Tawheedi belief. We also talked about last night how this idea of atheism, of people not believing in God, is not new. It's happened, and it happened during even the time of the Imams. And in one famous incident, you see how one of the companions, because of his lack of ilm and his lack of akhlaq, made himself and Shi'ism look bad. So we don't want to get caught in that same predicament. We want to make sure if we are going to engage anyone, if we do decide that I want to have a conversation, educate, do tabligh or da'wah, maybe even debate, which should be a last resort thing. But if I have to engage somebody, I should know what I'm talking about first and foremost. And even if I spend time studying and researching and learning and I actually have all the information, if I don't have the akhlaq to back it up, I should also take a step back too. It's not just about the ilm and the knowledge, we have to have the akhlaq in having conversations with other individuals. And this doesn't just go for atheists or for Sunnis or anything like that. It's for our fellow Shias as well too when we end up having disagreements. And we naturally do. I'm sure in this community there's a whole bunch of different opinions on many different things. You know, Muharram, Azadari becomes a very hot topic for a lot of people. And there are a lot of different ideas that float around. Being, arrogant, being condescending, insulting one another is not a way to try to convince somebody to your side, even if we're saying that there's such a thing as having a right side when it comes to Azadari in the first place. So if you don't have the akhlaq to be able to engage somebody in a discussion, it's better we just say, look, I don't know, and I'd rather not even talk about it, and we leave it alone. Now, as we move on tonight, we want to start talking about, well, okay, if people are asking you and I, all right, prove to me God exists. You monotheists, Muslims also, right, as part of that, you say that, people should be believing in God. It's obvious, it's rational. Well, plenty of scientists, probably the majority of philosophers, at least the famous ones out there, these professors in universities, the most famous universities, most of them happen to be atheists. And they say, look, we've heard all you religious people, right, decade after decade, century after century, and you have no logic, you've got nothing rational to back you up. What you say is against science, it's unscientific. So you have no evidence, no proof. Why do you insist on having the rest of the world believe in something that has no evidence for it? And then why do you keep doing it too? You're trying to convince us and you don't have any proof. And you and I sometimes, we get caught up like that. We might know in the back of our mind that maybe there is a proof, but I don't know what it is. And when somebody questions us, sometimes that makes our iman go away. So we want to try to strengthen that understanding starting from tonight, inshallah. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There is a deeper, longer conversation about the idea of proofs itself. It is, I think, essential, but because we have people of different backgrounds over here, different ages over here, I don't want to say anything that gets, goes over a lot of our heads, right? It might get a little too overwhelming, right? There's a whole field of knowledge, many of you might have heard of it, called epistemology. Epistemology is basically the science that tells you and discusses what makes something true or false. That's what it is, right? So there's a whole discussion about this idea of religious epistemology, for example, right? Or logical epistemology. Why do we use logic to prove things? Or scientific epistemology. Why do people use science to prove things? It's important for all of us to know this. Again, on the minbar it might be a little too complicated, but I want you to know some of these ideas in the back of your mind because these are the fancy terms that other people might throw at you and I. So we should at least hear them and know that they do exist, right? And behind all of this, because we're getting attacked all the time, sometimes it's actually worthwhile to push back a little bit. We end up being on the defensive a lot. When somebody asks us, we don't know, we get defensive. But sometimes actually we can be a little offensive and aggressive. Not offensive like insulting. I mean that we should take a position of authority. When people are asking us for scientific and logical and rational proofs, say if you don't have that, then you shouldn't be believing in this. If this thing really matters in your life, if this is so important, you better have the proofs to back it up. And we don't want to outright say, no, but we can push back a little bit and say, hold on. Throughout all of history, all of the most important ideas, most important beliefs that you and I have, how much logic and reason and rationality or science do you and I actually utilize to hold those important beliefs? From simple to complicated ideas. I'm going to give you one example. Those of us who have grown up in a very traditional household, meaning mother, father, child, right? When we are growing up, right, we learn to call that male and female in our house, mama, baba, mother, father, whatever, right? We use whatever terms they teach us. In our minds, we just have the assumption that this is my mother and this is my father, right? Why would I think otherwise? Has it ever occurred to anybody that, well, I shouldn't be calling them mom and dad or ammi abu or anything until I get a DNA test done first? I need the scientific proof for all of this. Most people don't act like that. It's not a normal way of acting. It's just based on general common sense that if you're growing up in a certain house with this male figure and a female figure, they're most likely your biological parents. No, sometimes, yes, there can be adoptions and things like that, but these are exceptions to the rules, right? Or maybe sometimes people's parents pass away, there's marriages that happen, there's remarriages, there's a lot of other exceptional issues, but it's not the norm. When something's outside of the norm, that's when you bring other evidence, right? And then somebody else will inform you, and then they'll back it up with evidence. But you and I, generally in our households, we grow up, this is my father, this is my mother, and that's it, we're done. And if somebody came to us and was like, how do you know for certain that that's your mom and dad? Like, well, I don't need certainty. They've shown me love. I've grown up with them, and that's enough for me. I don't need to see a birth certificate. I don't need a DNA test. I don't need anything like that. It's not required. We don't need some extensive philosophical, rational proof for this. It's just basic common sense. It's how you and I live. And there's so many other things that you and I do, the exact same thing. Another example before we move on. And we used this example before, but right now, whenever you and I are engaged in this world, whenever we want to get something done, there's this system of cause and effect, right? Basic system of cause and effect. I get thirsty, what do? I take some water and I drink it, and it eventually quenches my thirst, right? That's it. Have I studied any rational, logical, scientific proof for this? No. You can do it if you want, but I'm sure 99% of us over here have never bothered to because we never needed to. Why? Because I learned from when I was a kid that anytime I was hungry, I was thirsty, I had food or drink, and it made that feeling of hunger or thirst go away. That's it. I've got all that evidence I need, and that's within me. It is my fitrah. It's in my soul. That's all I need, and I'm okay with that. I don't need some scientific study to prove to me what water molecules will do to the body and what is the nature of thirst and quenching thirst. I don't need all of that. I don't need somebody to sit on a whiteboard and write down all these formulas. What does that matter to me? I've got the experience. I have tajrubah to back it up. That's enough for me. I don't need to go beyond that. The majority of our life is that. It's experience. It's lived experience. And from the beginning of mankind up until now, the vast majority of humans have a lived experience that there's something beyond us. Whether it's multiple gods, mushrikeen, polytheists, idols, worshipping weather, something else. Then finally, monotheism. Basically something supernatural, something metaphysical, immaterial. Ghair madi, right? It's beyond this world. There's something above human beings. Greeks, Romans, everybody had something like this. This was the majority, and has always been the majority of mankind. So we have always been going. Human civilization has always been saying and believing the exact same thing. So now, when some atheist or somebody comes and says, well, I challenge you to prove it. It's like, well, I don't need the proof. I've got the whole history of humanity on my side. Why are you so concerned with it? I'm not super concerned with it. It's not a big deal. You should be worried. Do you have actually any real evidence, logically, rationally, scientifically, that can disprove all of humanity like this? No, you really don't. So we don't have to be that defensive. We don't have to feel so scared because we're on the right side of history, at the very least. Does that mean we don't have proofs? No. But it means we don't have to feel so ashamed sometimes when we don't have the proofs because we don't need it. We're on the winning team, and we've been on the winning team for generations. So why do we feel so bad when people say, you don't have this, you don't have this? Like, look, the greatest minds throughout history have all believed this stuff. It's a very recent thing that now you're growing and growing as atheists or agnostics, whatever, but that's your job. That's your business. You have that shak and doubt. Okay, that's your problem. That's not my problem. If you want to go solve your doubt, go ahead. You want to go research and study philosophy, and go ahead, do that. You want to go into the depths of epistemology? Bismillah, no problem. But don't make us feel bad for something that is very super rational, beyond obvious, and it's something that all of us have experienced. Everybody throughout mankind, throughout all of history. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There's a history behind how humans have slowly lost their connection to Allah, to God, to supernatural stuff. It's those of you who know, right, if you've gone to public school like me, remember they taught you about this thing called the Renaissance, the Enlightenment. Again, I'm talking to all of us who have gone to public school over here. a good amount of what we learned over there is a bunch of lies, right? A bunch of nonsense and propaganda. Starting right from that, Thanksgiving dinner, right? The nice little ceasefire between the natives and the pilgrims, all that nonsense that they teach us when we're younger. I don't know if they still do it here, but that's what I learned, right? That, they all got together and let's just trade and here's some maize. And no, that wasn't like that. It was Europeans coming and slaughtering everybody and committing a genocide, which is unfortunately their history all the time. Just genocide after genocide after genocide. That's what they do. Then they teach us about quote-unquote American history, the founding fathers, these wonderful individuals. You can read their writings. These not the having slaves, being, disgusting individuals, fighting, being corrupt. No. We were taught a very specific version of history, which is their lies, right? We say the ones who win, the victor, is the one who writes history. And they're the ones who have written this false history. And alongside of that, they love to talk about how great Europe is, how great Europe was. The Enlightenment, the Renaissance. Why? Because it was tied to the Christian church going away. They were trying to get rid of God. They're trying to get rid of the church. And they said, you know what we're going to replace? We can replace all of that. We don't really need God in the church. What do we need? Our brains, our aql, logic, and science. We got all we need. Thank you very much. Now, some of them still held on to some God, but they're like, okay, God is over there somewhere, but down here on the physical plane, in this world, we've got our own brains, our aql, our logic, our reason, and we have science. And that's all we need over here. God is somewhere doing his own thing. So we'll still kind of pray to him and believe in him, but we'll handle all our stuff by ourselves. And this was the beginning of the end. And you see how it gets worse and worse and worse. Most of you, this whole term is called modernism, when you think that it's the human brain which can determine everything that's real and right, or science. And then we've moved beyond what's called modernism, and now we live in what's called the postmodern world. You guys have heard that term before? What that means, again, I hope this doesn't go over everybody's heads, but it's important to know too. Postmodern is that, God, gone. Forget that. No more religion. That's outdated. Even science and logic and reason, that's all made up too. We don't need any of that. So what's left in this quote-unquote postmodern world? My feelings, my intuition, my heart. Live your self-truth, right? Live your own truth, right? That's where all this weird identity stuff comes from. That's what it is. You can be whatever you want, think whatever you want. There's this thing, I know it sounds crazy, but in universities they've been discussing this. There's postmodern mathematics. They're saying, you know what, maybe 1 + 1 is not 2. Maybe it's 3. Like, okay, you know what? This is by definition fasad fil ard. This is chaos that they're trying to start. They're confusing everybody of the most obvious things. So whenever people are pushing against these obvious things, know that, look, these people they're living in a world of batil. I don't have to be bothered with them. They can put all the doubts out that they want. Don't let them put doubts in us. And be careful, because this same trend, you've seen this, I'm sure you've experienced it. It's happening in the Muslim world too. It's become stronger and stronger and stronger. It's happening in the Shia world too. There are certain speakers, unfortunately, I won't take names, but there are speakers out there who unfortunately come and hijack this, blessed minbar, and they say these types of things too. There's a postmodern Shiism that exists out there, where they say, okay, the Quran might say this, the Ahlul Bayt said this, but what does your heart tell you? Well, where did that come from? Well, my intuition says something different. Who told you to follow your intuition? Well, I'll tell you who told you to follow it. It was shaitan, right? But I can't tell them that. They get offended. Said, how do you know that you know better than Allah and the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt? Where did that come from? That's the basic Islam 101 for all of us. But you see, even that they're trying to remove from us. So we have to be very, very careful of these buzzwords that people throw around. And hopefully, inshallah, now we'll move on. We'll solidify some of these beliefs we have, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So yes, people will call us out. They'll ask for proofs. Do we need it? No. But you know what? We can be kind to them too. You say, even though I'm not obliged to give you anything, even though we, Muslims, monotheists, people who believe in one God, people who believe in something metaphysical, we are on the right side of history, we're in the majority, but you know what? Out of love and kindness, we will give you some proofs, because we have plenty of them. There's no shortage of proofs for God's existence. We have a lot. They start from very simple ones, and they get more and more complicated. And you have very intense philosophical ones too. So when somebody's coming and saying, all right, give me something rational, give me something logical. It's like, hold on. When you're telling me that I have to be rational and logical, do you yourself, who's accusing us of being irrational, do you know what those words mean? Or are you just throwing them out? No, a lot of times we throw these words out ourselves, or somebody throws the word out at us, we don't have no idea what the word means. Rational, logical, reasonable, empirical, scientific, all these things. What does that actually mean? It's, sometimes a lot of these fancy buzzwords, or as a famous writer calls them, plastic words. They don't really have any meaning. They're just used for an agenda. It's propaganda. They're used in a pejorative sense. You know what that means? They're used to insult people. So even though what's going to happen is I might disagree with somebody, and just because I disagree, I don't like what they're saying, I'm like, you're being irrational. You're being childish. You're being immature. Just use words to insult them like that. I don't know what it means, but I'm just using it. You have a lot of other words like that too, right? Like, human rights, freedom, liberty. These are all buzzwords people use. They're against human rights. They're against liberty and justice, right? Authoritarian, autocratic. These are just fancy words people come up just to say that we don't agree with what you're doing. That's it. Anyway. So, think about when you and I have probably even gotten into arguments with other people. Like one of the arguments that in almost every community that I get into, there's always somebody that comes and argues with me about who's better, Batman or Superman. Without fail, somebody comes and argues with me. Batman or Superman, who's better? Who's stronger? Who would win in a fight? And we go back and forth, right? You're being irrational, you're being illogical, this, that, all this other stuff. We don't know what we're saying. We're just tossing out random words, right? Oh, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, you don't make any sense. No. Right? Nonsense like that. Man, that's not the way you speak to anybody else. And because obviously, everybody knows that Batman wins every time, right? Everybody knows that, right? Yeah. No. There's not one comic, there's not one movie where Superman's ever won. Why? You know why? Because Superman has strength, but what does Batman have? That would say money. Intelligence. Aqal, yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, he has money too, you're right. But he has willpower more so than Superman, and he has intelligence more than Superman. That's why he wins every time. He cheats? Okay. We're going to talk afterwards. Okay, don't worry. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I told you somebody's going to argue with me. I said it. I have ilm al-ghayb. I told you somebody's going to argue. It happens. Khair. Okay. So, what's a very basic definition of being logical, rational, reasonable, whatever? It's simple. It means that in order for me to try to convince somebody of something else, I'm not involving feelings and emotions. That's the simplest definition. It gets more complicated, but that's simple enough. So let's give an example of how some people try to prove God's existence in an irrational or illogical way. They'll say, look, I make dua, I pray, and then it gets answered. I was sick, I made a dua, and then it was answered. That proves that God exists. It's like, okay, that's how you feel, that is what's happening. That's your emotion, but that doesn't offer anything really. Because you and I might pray to Allah. We might use tawassul, right? And get, our hajat answered, our requests answered. Somebody else is praying to Jesus. They get their prayers answered. Somebody else is probably praying to shaitan, getting their prayers answered. So that's not a criteria. That doesn't work, right? Just because you feel like your prayers were answered, that doesn't work. Others, especially Christians, will say, I feel this Holy Spirit in my life. Like, good for you. That's awesome that you feel that in your life, but that doesn't prove anything. Because if I don't feel that, you can't transfer your Holy Spirit feeling into me, right? And I don't want you to either, right? But that doesn't work. Your feelings, your emotions, it's good for you. No problem, but you can't transfer that to me. So that doesn't work. Again, that's not rational or logical. It's okay for that person. We don't want to take away somebody else's yaqeen. That's good for them. But okay, that's not how a lot of us might get yaqeen. Maybe we need something a bit deeper and a bit more scientific or rational or logical. So what exactly are we talking about logic? So in Arabic called mantiq, right? Same word that's used usually in Farsi and Arabi as well too, right? Mantiq. So the science of logic, the discipline of logic is ilm al-mantiq. It's a discipline and a science which is studied in the Hawza. It's one of the earliest classes somebody can take. You can take classes on logic or in logic. In most universities, you can take formal logic classes as well too. There's multiple different types of logic. There's not just one, right? There's fuzzy logic, there's Boolean logic, there's mathematical logic, there's a whole bunch. But the ones that you and I are typically thinking about and talking about when it comes to this is generally called deductive logic or Aristotelian logic. What that means is it's something that the Greeks basically formulated, passed down through Muslim Islamic scholars, and they kind of, tidied it up a little bit. Okay? Now what is all this? again, I don't want to do a whole mantiq lesson, but I just want to give one example to show that even though you and I don't know the definition, even though we've never sat in a mantiq class maybe, the aql that Allah has instilled in each and every one of us is pre-programmed with all the rules that we need. We just have to access it sometimes. Let me give the example. So in mantiq, they talk about different forms of arguments you can make. The one that all of us, the easiest one to use is called form 1. Form 1 in terms of making an argument. Form 1, for those of you who have taken probably, I think, when do you study the transitive property? That would be algebra 1, right? Probably maybe pre-algebra, algebra 1, you study the transitive property, right? If A equals B and B equals C, then what? Then A equals C, right? So that's mathematics, right? That same thing applies as form 1 logic. So if instead of using numbers, you decide to use concepts, the same thing would work. So let's see if we can figure this out. Everyone that is sitting in this room is feeling hot. Okay? Everyone in this room, everyone here that's sitting in here is feeling hot. Anyone that feels hot loses concentration and focus. So what's the conclusion? Yeah, it's a bad conclusion, obviously, right? So it means everyone in here is losing their concentration and focus, right? Yeah. So all we did is A, B, B, C, A, C. Your aql did it automatically. You didn't have to sit there. We didn't need a whiteboard. It just plugged it in, right? Copy and paste, that's all it did. A, B, B, C, and then you made a conclusion. You took the first term from the first line, second term from the second line, and then you just made a sentence at the end. That's all form 1 logic is. And any real proof, that's what people are trying to do, is put these two proofs together and then you get a conclusion from there. So what we are trying to do is say, okay, can we do the same thing for God? If what we can do is say, here's one statement, here's a second statement, can we draw a conclusion from that where we get that Allah exists? If we do, then that means we've got logical and rational proofs, that's it. If we can do that, that means, all your arguments about us not being rational, not being logical, we can do it and get rid of it in like 10 minutes. Or actually less than that, because we don't have 10 minutes, right? So we'll do it in 5 minutes, hopefully, inshallah. So then all your accusations about us being unscientific, illogical, irrational are going to go out the door. And again, we're giving the simplest, inshallah, hopefully shortest example, even though there's many different types of proofs. What we're going to go through is something that falls under the heading of a teleological argument, which is a fancy word for just saying that things have specific purposes and goals. Another way that it's phrased is an argument or proof by design. Maybe you've heard this stuff before. Sometimes they talk about this watchmaker argument. You may have heard this, that if, let's say, you and I were walking somewhere, we found some fancy device like a watch randomly in like the desert, we wouldn't think that it just came there by itself. We'd say, look, this is a complex machine. Somebody must have put this together, somebody that has an aql, somebody that can design things. And the watchmaker thing is an example of a teleological argument. It's an example, but it's not the actual argument. So I'm going to give you the actual argument, inshallah. I don't know if you've heard it before, but I'll give you a simple version of it, inshallah. There's other versions too, right? There are other types of arguments. There's arguments through morality, based on the fact that you and I are moral creatures. You can prove to God through that. There's something called cosmological arguments, where you take a feature of the universe and then use that to prove that Allah is the one who has caused the feature in the universe. There are something called ontological proofs, which are very, very high level, which talk about the idea of wujud and being itself. Right, so it gets more and more intense. But again, this one that we'll do, hopefully will be simple. We'll get through it, inshallah, and won't be too difficult. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This proof, it's not just Muslims who use this and have used this. For centuries, for millennia actually, this proof has been used by many philosophers. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, famous Christian theologians, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, the famous Jewish scholar Maimonides, Musa ibn Maymun, he used this, Ibn Rushd, Ghazali, Isaac Newton. Many thinkers and philosophers rely on this kind of argument for them to believe that God exists. So, okay. Remember, we're going to have two separate statements, and then from there we're going to draw a conclusion that it will come by itself, right? Okay. So first statement, first idea. This universe, this reality, this world has order and design. Pretty simple, right? This universe, this reality, okay? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the first statement is that this reality, this world, this universe has order and design. So, okay, so we have to stop there. That's the first statement. Actually, you know what, let's go through the whole thing and then we'll come back. So first statement was what? This universe has order and design. What's the second statement? That anything and everything that has order and design must have a designer. Therefore, what's the conclusion then? This world has a designer. That simple. If this universe has order and design, anything with order and design requires a designer, then this world has a designer. That's it. Two simple statements, you get a conclusion that this world is designed. Now, there is pushback, obviously. We have to go through all the different objections that people have. So each of those two statements, formally, they're called premises. You have to go through premise 1 and then premise 2. If we can prove both of those and convince the other person that they believe in it too, then the conclusion, they have to believe in it. So let's go through each one. This universe has order and design. Now it seems obvious, but there are some people who push back and say, no, it doesn't have order and design. Say, what do you mean? Say, well, there's evil that happens in the world. Right? There are natural disasters. There's crime. People are suffering. There's poverty. So how could God have designed something that's so horrible? Right? This is one of the typical objections that atheists bring. And we say, look, that's a point that you're bringing up that is worth discussion, but you're creating a separate additional argument. We didn't say that this is a world that's designed with only good things. We never said that. We just said that there's order and design. So then we have to tell them, okay, what do you mean by order and design? We already talked about it a few minutes ago. It just means that there's a system in this world of cause and effect. That's it. That when you have a cause, it has a very specific effect. That's all it means. If I take a apple seed and I plant it in the ground, what do I get from there? An apple tree, if it's taken care of, right? You plant an orange seed, you get an orange tree, right? And so on and so forth. You can't plant an apple seed and a bulldozer come out from the ground, right? That stuff doesn't work. We don't have things that spontaneously, pop into existence. That doesn't happen. In order for anything to take place, there has to be a cause for it. That's it. Every single thing that happens has a specific cause for it. That's all we're saying about order and design. Yes, even evil requires cause and effect. For somebody to harm somebody else, they have to have an intention, then they maybe make a fist, and then they go and use it in an evil manner against somebody. Yeah, that's evil, that's bad. You don't call that bad design. You just say that, look, that's part of cause and effect. That's it. So basically, if anybody is an actual scientist and they believe in science, they have to believe this first premise. Science is impossible without cause and effect, right? The whole point of science is to study cause and effect. That's what an experiment is for. We're testing to see what's going on with cause and effect. That's all it is. Trying to figure out what is the cause of something or what is the effect of a certain thing. That's what a laboratory experiment is for. That's all it is, cause and effect. So most people are not going to deny this, especially if we explain it properly. That all we're talking about is that there's cause and effect here. Do you accept? They have to accept that. If somebody says, I don't believe in cause and effect, then, aql, right? There's a problem there. There's ways of proving that, but I think it's not worth going through that kind of argument. So we'll leave that aside. This is a very obvious premise. Everybody would take this. Now we go to the second one. This one might be a bit more convoluted. They say, okay, now we've already proven to you we're talking about cause and effect, right? That this universe that we live in, this reality has cause and effect. We all know that. Then we said the second thing was that anything that has order and design, meaning you can see and experience cause and effect, needs a designer. They say, no, hold on. There, we're going to stop you. Say, no, that's not the case. How do we know that? So let's open that up a little bit, inshallah. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what they're trying to say is that, we are not denying cause and effect, but we're saying that that can sometimes happen accidentally. We're saying that, no, there has to be somebody with goal and purpose, living to some degree, a designer, somebody that's actively involved. That's what we're saying. And the other side will say, no, you can have an accident. It's like, okay, let's think this through a little bit. Okay, imagine for a second that I've got a tray, and it's got maybe, a can of paint, a bucket of paint on it, right? So I come walking through the door with my tray, one can of paint, and I trip and I fall. That paint now spills on the floor. Now, is it possible that when that paint spills, it kind of makes like a little picture, maybe like a circle, maybe something that looks like a smiley face? It could happen, right? Yeah, it's not far-fetched. You might say, okay, there's an accident, right? It happened. Okay, fine, granted. I didn't intend to make that picture. It happened because I fell down, so it was accidental. No problem. Say, okay, now, say, let me go, clean it up. I go back. This time, you know what? Let me bring a couple more cans. So I bring four more, I have 5 colors of paint now. I got to come walking through, trip, all 5 spill on the floor. Again. Now here, right, yellow was there before, so it makes almost like a picture of a sun. The blue that I had spilled and almost made it look like there was a sky and maybe, you know, the sea. I had some green there that almost made it look like there was grass. It's like, okay, and the other colors, you know, make it look like there's like a picture of some scenery. Is that possible? That's crazy if it happened. It could happen. That's not impossible. It could happen. If you saw that happen, you're like, well, that's crazy. But you wouldn't say that there was some divine power that did that. You're like, oh, okay, it's an accident. It happens. It's like, okay. Now, let's say I've got a really big tray. And I've got maybe 1-2 billion colors on it now. I've got really long arms, so I can carry this. And I walk in the room, and I don't know what's wrong with me. Guess what? I fell down again. I fall down again, and now the paint. It doesn't just spill and make one picture, but the paint spills, and it makes one picture. From that picture makes another picture. That other picture makes another one, and it just keeps on going and making more and more and more pictures, each of them with a specific design. Now, what person that is actually sane and rational is going to say that this is something that can happen accidentally, by chance? No, that's not how we've seen and perceived and experienced reality. When this much design is witnessed and understood, like, look, this has to be intended. This doesn't just happen by itself. So when we're talking about these, the reason I use those numbers is because, I mean, the numbers increase every day. This is the amount of unique species that exist in our world right now. Just in our world. I'm not even counting whatever aliens may or may not be there. You want to learn about them, you go ask Joe Rogan, because I don't know what species of aliens are out there, but there are some, probably, right? And I guarantee that'll come on Slido too. Somebody's going to ask, do we believe in aliens? Is aliens mentioned in the Quran? I'm not going to answer it. I'm not gonna I believe that they exist, but I'll give you the short answer. It doesn't matter. Whether they exist or not doesn't even matter. Anyway, so there's what? Like 10,000 different species, unique species of birds, 32,000 different types of fish that inshallah one day I'll be able to try all of them as a piece of sushi inshallah. 250,000 different types of flowers, right? All of this. And it's growing, you know, every day they're finding something else. They go deeper into the sea and like, I guess what? We found this weird looking fish with weird fangs. They're finding random all the time. So you're saying that, hold on, from the beginning of quote unquote the Big Bang, when there was obviously no life, from there just these whatever forces that were there, expansion, explosion, whatever you want to call it, which inshallah if we have time we'll talk about too. From all of this, now you get this planets developing. From this planet now, there's water and there's oxygen and every carbon dioxide and all these other elements which are specifically needed for you and I to come into existence, although we weren't here first, right? There's these other life, if we believe that stuff, is now developing, single cell, all this stuff is happening, and so you and I can be sitting here, burning up, right, in this basement over here. This is all an accident. From the Big Bang up until now, all this is an accident. Like, this is insane. It's an insane belief to have. So when somebody says it's illogical to believe in Allah, it's illogical and irrational to believe in God, it's like, no, I think what's irrational and illogical is to believe that this is happening by accident. That's the irrational and illogical thing. Because you already have told us, Mr. or Mrs. Atheist, that you believe that there's cause and effect, and you're using that. And you have witnessed and seen that anytime you see complexity, you see something, you know that it's coming from somebody with some level of mind, some involvement in it. So when you see this whole reality, which scientists themselves will say, look, it looks like somebody's fine-tuning this, right? They're changing the variables to make sure life can be here. You have admitted this yourself, all these astronomers. So why are you just rejecting a God and a designer when it's the most obvious explanation? If you want to disprove that, then you bring the proof, not me and you. We don't have to do that, you bring it. And that's what Allah says, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. He tells everybody, if you're truthful, no problem, bring your burhan, bring your proof. It's easy, do it. And the challenge has always been there, and they've tried. And they've tried over and over and over again, but all of these different proofs, they haven't been able to stop. They couldn't do anything to it. Either they put a false flag, they put a smoke screen, right? I gave you the example of evil before. They say, oh, but there's evil. But we're not talking about evil yet. We can discuss that with you, but that's separate. We're just talking about cause and effect and design and what makes the most sense for this reality. That's it. That's all we're talking about right now. And all we're trying to establish is that that's the most reasonable explanation for this reality. If you want to go deeper, we can. You want more philosophical arguments, we can do that. But don't start accusing us of being irrational, illogical, unscientific. Your science requires cause and effect. Your science is telling us about the fine-tuning of this universe. So don't tell us we're unscientific either. We're not bringing our emotions into this, although even if we do, what's wrong with that? We're not bringing our feelings into this, although even if we do, what's wrong with that? Because our fitrah, our soul, is in line with what is real and what is haqq. If your fitrah is not in line with that, and if it's, the way our ulama say, if it's polluted, that's a you problem, not a us problem. So don't make us feel bad for believing in haqq and believing in the truth in this obvious way. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay. Now, there is some more depth that we can offer into this. Right? Some people might object and say, look, the Big Bang Theory is enough to say that, no, the Big Bang happened accidentally and that's how this universe came about. We could open this up. Now, this I'll leave up to you. If you want to continue this discussion on this path, it'll get slightly more scientific as well, then we can go and do that, right? We can continue on, we can mention the idea of the Big Bang and whether it actually disproves or proves God's existence or not. So we could do that tomorrow if people are interested. If people are not interested, then we're going to move on, kind of finish our discussion on Tawheed and then move to the next topic. So I'll leave it up to you, it'll be your decision, inshallah ta'ala. Salawat al Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And I'm only asking because in previous times where we've had these same discussions, some people enjoy like a little bit of the scientific stuff, a little bit of this. Again, it requires some focus and concentration, obviously, right? Because I ain't doing no fazail on here, so people are getting bored, right? It happens sometimes. So some people may not be able to follow, and that's okay, right? So I want to make sure everybody's comfortable, everybody's okay with the topics and the subtopics that we're doing, right? If it's getting too much, and you can't, can't focus or follow, or we need a whiteboard or a blackboard in here, like, no, I can't do this dars, I can't learn, right? This is summer vacation, we can't be learning right now. If that's the case, then we'll try to move on, inshallah. So I'll wait to hear feedback, inshallah, from everybody afterwards. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, we are very quickly approaching Ashura, the day where we commemorate the actual occurrence and the tragedy of Karbala, where all of these shuhada on that day, the morning, the afternoon, the late afternoon, lost their lives, became shaheed. And as we said, it's our custom and our culture and our habit to try and, as best as we can, to honor, to revere, to show ihtiram and respect to these various personalities. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if we could go through every single shaheed and spend a night and discuss all of them? Unfortunately, we don't have that time. So our culture, the way that we've been doing things in our communities is that we pick a few select personalities, a few of the shuhada, and just give a few words in honor of them and remember some part of their musibah and masa'ib. We usually begin with some of the companions, those who are not a part of the family of the Ahl Bayt. From this night onwards, now we dedicate these nights only to Bani Hashim, to the family of Rasulullah, to the family of Ali and Fatima, to the family of Hussein, of Hasan, of all of the Ahl Bayt, the Ahl Haram, the Bani Hashim. And we begin tonight, although most historians would agree that technically Ali Akbar most likely was the first to go out into battle. Typically our culture, our custom has been that we start with different personalities. And it's because of their age, because of their youth, and because of what some historians and some poets discuss what took place. All of these different masa'ib, all these musibats that we hear, sometimes it becomes difficult for us to connect, right? Sometimes. What I try to advise some is there usually is one of these personalities that you and I might be able to connect to more. Sometimes for some individuals they have a very strong relationship with one of their uncles. So I tell them then on that night where we talk about Abbas, then focus on that night and think about your uncle and how Sakina, how she was feeling when she lost her uncle. Or some of us who, the opposite, we think about our nephews or our nieces. Say, okay, on that night, on the night when we commemorate Qasim Shahada, connect with that. Think about your own nephew. There's always a personality, there's always a shaheed that you and I can probably have a very strong connection with. Tonight, I believe, is a night that mothers have a unique place where they can connect and no one else can connect like they do. Every mother has a specific wish in their mind. Fathers do too, but mothers, it's something different, where they expect their children to live these long, fulfilling lives. They want to see their children succeed in education, to get married, to give them grandkids, right? To continue on like that. Anytime any mother sees that their child is in any distress, any difficulty, any pain, any real mother would sacrifice their entire life, all the pain that they have, they would give just to make sure that their child doesn't feel even an ounce of pain. And this is where we remember the sacrifice of Zainab as she offers to Imam Hussein her children on Muhammad. These two children who were maybe 13 years old, and Muhammad being the younger one, maybe being 11 or 12. They're not even baligh yet. They probably haven't even reached bulugh yet. But you see that they have this desire to go out to fight for their uncle, to fight for Islam. They've been sent on behalf of their father, Abdullah bin Ja'far al-Tayyar. But their episode is something which is very, very heartbreaking. When the time came, on Muhammad see how Imam Hussein is going around and he's telling all of the adults, telling them that this is going to be your maqam and your station in Jannah. They were probably wondering, what about us? What do we get? When he saw one by one Imam Hussein was giving a flag, an alam, to his companions and they were going out into battle. On and Muhammad may have been wondering, what about us? Do we get to go? And do we get to fight as well too? How come they get to go? When they saw Ali Akbar go out, they must have been thinking, okay, what about us? One by one they see their family, their cousins, their uncles, these new friends that they've made. They see everybody going out one by one into battle. And they're wondering, they're going to their mother Zainab, saying, Amma, when do we get to go? We're supposed to go as well. And Zainab says, let me get you ready for battle. Let me get you ready, and I'll make sure that Hussein gives you permission for this. They say that Zainab begins to get them ready for battle. Can you imagine these two young boys putting on armor, putting an amama on their, tying an amama on their heads, tightening the straps of their sandals, getting their swords ready, swords which were probably too heavy for them to even lift maybe. Walking to Hussein, dressed ready for combat, asking their uncle, please, do you give us ijazat? Can we go out and fight? Everybody else has gone out, let us go now too. And Hussein sees them and tears begin to swell up in his eyes. He says, how can I send you two boys out? When I look at you, my heart breaks. I can't send you out to battle. How can I do that? They said, please, everyone else has gone out. It's our turn now. We get to go as well too. All of our cousins have gone out. Our uncles have gone out. We should get to go and fight for you as well too. This is not fair. We want to go and fight for you as well. Imam Hussein says, what would I say to your father? Your father gave and sent you as an amanat. I have to protect you. I can't send you off like this. And what about after this? You don't know the difficulty, the bala, the musibah that will happen after all of this, after all of us have gone. Do you know what your mother will go through? You have to be there to protect her as well too. I can't let you go out into battle. And On and Muhammad are heartbroken. They run back. What every child does, whenever they're heartbroken, they run back to their mother. And they tell their mother, Amma, your brother's not letting us go. Our Imam is not letting us go out to battle. What do we do? And this is where Zainab says, fine, I will take you myself. She grabs him, On in one hand, Muhammad in the other. She says, I will bring you and I will tell Hussein that he has to do this. Zainab comes with On and Muhammad in her hands. She comes and says, O Akhi, O my brother, I am asking you, please let my children go and fight for you. Let them go out and perform jihad as well. Let them go and give their lives. She says, oh my Zainab, I can't do this. Like, what about your husband? What will he say? And she says, don't you know that he sent me with a specific thing, that these are his sacrifices? Since he could not become because of his illness, he said, let my sons become my representatives. Let them sacrifice themselves for you. Of course he would be pleased with this. And he says, Zainab, what about you? What about after this? They will need you. He says, no, I don't need them. They need to protect you right now. They need to fight for you. Let them go out. And this is where some narrations say Hussein finally accepted. Some riwayat, mu'mineen, mu'minat say no, this wasn't enough for Hussein. And this is where Zainab remembers and says, I ask you by Haqqi Fatima, our mother, to let them go out. When Hussein hears the name of Fatima, his mother, after so long, then he breaks down and says, now I cannot reject this. Fine, I will let them go. Some poets remind us that this is where perhaps Hussein and Abbas say, fine, let us get these two young children ready for battle. Let us help them get them on the horses. They can barely even sit on the horses. They're just young children. And they say, on Muhammad, watch out for one another. When you're going out to battle, you should work as a team. On, if you notice that somebody is trying to attack your brother, go protect him. Muhammad, if you see that soldier's coming after on, you have to go and protect him too. Take care of one another. And this is what they are told with, and they go fight very valiantly out in the field. But of course, there's two young boys. They become shaheed. They fall prey to their wounds over there. And now they say at this point, the soldiers on Imam Hussein's side, some even say Imam Hussein himself now is bringing the bodies of On and Muhammad back towards the camps. And mu'mineen, mu'minat, can you imagine mothers waiting outside of their own tents, waiting for the bodies of their children or their husbands or their brothers to come back? What do you think would happen to any of the mothers that are over here if you heard that you're sending out your own child to become shaheed? What would your feeling be when the bodies are brought back? You and I would break down in seeing something like this, but this is Zainab that we're talking about. Zainab doesn't act like this. They say that when the bodies are brought back, Zainab falls down in sujood and says, Rabbana taqabbal minna hadha al-qurban. Oh my Rabb, accept this. This is my sacrifice for me to you. Accept this for me. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. ماتم حسين.
اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع 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 اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع 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 بنت علی یہ بچوں سے کہتی تھی بار بار بنت علی یہ بچوں سے کہتی تھی بار بار رن کو سدھارو نو محمد یہ مان سار اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع الوداع دائے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع الوداع جعفر کا افتخار بڑھانا جہاد میں جعفر کا افتخار بڑھانا جہاد میں نانا کی اپنے شان دکھانا جہاد میں اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع الوداع اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع الوداع شیر خدا کی بیٹی کے تم دونوں شیر ہو شیر خدا کی بیٹی کے تم دونوں شیر ہو میدان میں جاؤ فتح میں اب کچھ نہ دیر ہو اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع 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 اے دل بران جعفر تیار الوداع अलविदा हर बात अपने सिन से सिवा हो तो बात है, हर बात अपने सिन से सिवा हो तो बात है, वो रन पड़े के हश्र बप्पा हो तो बात है, ऐ दिल बरान जाफर तैयार। अलविदा अलविदा ऐ दिल बरान जाफर तैयार। अलविदा फिदा दा शिमरो उमर के सर जो उतारो तो खुश हूँ मैं, शिमरो उमर के सर जो उतारो तो खुश हूँ मैं, दुश्मन को झूम झूम के मारो तो खुश हूँ मैं, ऐ दिल बरान जाफर तैयार। अलविदा 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 ऐ दिल बरान जाफर तैयार। अलविदा अलविदा अलविदा। Know the Hussein of your time, know the Yazid of your time, know the Hussein of your time, know the Yazid of your time, follow the Hussein of your time, confront the Yazid of your time, follow the Hussein of your time, confront the Yazid of your time. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Count the Hussein of your time, reject the Yazid of your time. Seek out the Hussein of your time, reject the Yazid of your time. Uphold the Hussein of your time, oppose the Yazid of your time. Uphold the Hussein of your time, oppose the Yazid of your time. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Stand with the Hussein of your time, fight the Yazid of your time. Stand with the Hussein of your time, fight the Yazid of your time. Protect the Hussein of your time, fight off the Yazid of your time. Protect the Hussein of your time, fight off the Yazid of your time. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Know the Hussein of your time, know the Yazid of your time. Know the Hussein of your time, know the Yazid of your time. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Hussein, 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 Mawla. Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا سيد الشهداء بكربلاء يا أبا عبد الله، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليكم يا أئمة المعصومين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي السلام عليك يا حجة القائم بن حسن المهدي مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه وظهوره وجعلنا من خير أعوانه وأنصاره وشياعه والمستشهدين بين يديه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا ودليلا وعينا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى